like to call this meeting to order.
Order.
So for her, start with roll call. Director Eto, if you'll start us.
Hiroshi Eto, Director, District 5.
Claire Wilson, Director, District 2.
Jeffrey McAnalloy, Director, District 1.
Liz Drake, Director, District 3.
Tammy Campbell, Superintendent.
And if you all please rise for the presentation of the colors by the Federal Way High School, JROTC.
Forward. March. Forward. Hold. Left. Face. Present. Colors.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Carry. Colors. Right. Face. Forward. March. Order. Hold. Order. Colors. Follow.
Please be seated. This time I'd entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda.
I move that the Board of Education approve the meeting agenda of February 23rd, 2016 as submitted.
So motion, do I hear a second?
Second the motion.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And now entertain a motion for the consent agenda.
I move that the Board of Education approve the consent agenda of February 23, 2016 as submitted.
The motion, do I hear a second?
I second.
Any discussion?
I think there's a few things worthy of note. There's an item here that I think is a little bit less than routine. We'd like to do a lot of routine things under the consent agenda, so I want to point these out just so that we have transparency with the public. One observation, the Distributive Education Clubs of America, so-called DECA, they have a trip and their focus is on finance, marketing, hospitality, and management. So to me, it's not quite STEM, so it hit me that the gender disparity was 2-to-1 in favor of the male students. So I was just kind of wondering why on that one. And then there's some construction work that we're planning. One where we're hiring an architect for the Early Learning Center that's at the old bus barn. So we access the old bus barn facility, and there's a new developer there, and we're leveraging that to create more space for the early learning function. I think the architect engineer fee is quite reasonable in terms of percentage of the expected constructed cost. And there's also a design contract that's being sent out for a boiler replacement, and again, the engineering fee seems very reasonable. So I think it's worthy to make sure that we cite large contract actions that we're taking so it doesn't appear to anybody that we're trying to do these under the radar. I also want to point out that relative to the construction type work, through the leadership of Dr. Campbell and the Director of Career and Technical Education, we're going to have significantly more outreach with industry and the trade unions relative to the construction contracts that we put out so that the contracts are better and more accepting of industry standards, and also incorporates, to the extent that we can, any internship opportunities that we can have with the unions in their apprenticeship programs. So I think these are great things to kind of highlight. And the last thing that I want to point out is that there is a lease approval that's in here. And this goes back to Interim Superintendent Sally McLean and the briefing she provided relative to leasing the property there at the old bus barn to look at a more early learning functions there. And so the board did approve us to have the team negotiate a lease, and so that's being approved through the consent agenda. So I just wanted to make sure that we highlighted those before we passed it.
And I'd also like to add just a point of order, as we think about consent agenda, everything that's on the consent agenda is appropriately there. And so it's very appropriate to call it out in the interest of making sure when people are looking at the agenda, they may not dig any deeper, but clearly it's not an issue of putting things in an agenda or in a place where people are not looking or where it shouldn't be. All of these things fit under the role of the superintendent, and as a board have been very involved and aware of that. So consent agenda items in the language of policy governance, just so individuals know, are those things that regularly appear that a board would approve that are operational in order, and that also are just regular orders of business. Clearly, anything like construction of a school, and we were before this consent agenda have been very much involved in what happened with the land related to the bus barn. So I just want to make sure it's about information only, and it's highlighting it. It's not about not being transparent in our actions.
And I would just add to that we actually, within policy governance, we established executive limitations. And then those executive limitations tell the superintendent what she can work within. And all of these things that were brought forward today fit within those jurisdictions and are normal things that would just flow through. So I just want to make sure that we tell the public there's not anything different here. As an individual board member, you can call them out if you have concern. But as the board president, I don't see any concerns, and we are following our policy procedures and within our executive limitations within the purview of the superintendent. So any other discussion? If not, I entertain them. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All right, our next item is the good news announcements. So we will start out. Director Wilson, if you'll start us.
We have a slew of good news tonight, and as you can tell, we have a room full. And so we're going to kick it off here. And this is a very exciting one, I think, for all of us, for all the students, and for all the families in the room. We're starting the good news segment of our evening by honoring 15 federal way teachers who earned their National Board for Professional Teaching Standards certification in 2015. National Board Certification is an assessment program designed to recognize great teachers who meet high and rigorous standards for what accomplished teachers should know and be able to do. National Board Certified teachers have successfully demonstrated exemplary teaching knowledge, skills, and practices. The National Board candidacy process is demanding and has numerous benefits to students as teachers become even more self-reflective about their practice and increase their specific subject area knowledge. Federal Way Public Schools ranks 4th in the state for the number of teachers achieving National Board certification in 2015. The district is routinely among the top districts in the state for the most teachers to earn National Board certification each year. Excuse me. With us this evening to stand in recognition of our newest National Board certified teachers are Francine Muishi, the district's Program Administrator of Teacher Induction, Mentoring, and Support, and District National Board Certified Teacher Facilitator, Diane McSweeney. I'll hopefully be doing a better job of reading the teacher's name in school and certification area. And when I do, if you could please come up and join the group in front. So I'm going to start with someone that I know very well, and that would be Dana Cole. Valhalla Elementary School, certified in literacy, reading, language arts, early and middle childhood. Next is Harvey Cole, Thomas Jefferson High School, certified in mathematics, early adolescence. Dina Hagan, Panther Lake Elementary School, certified in literacy, reading language arts, early and middle childhood. Lauren Hamilton, Federal Way High School, certified in science, adolescence, and young adulthood. Dallas Harwood, Decatur High School, certified in social studies and history, adolescence, and young adulthood. Brittany Howell, Sunnycrest Elementary School, certified in generalist, middle childhood. Jacina Lubu, Olympic View Elementary School, certified in physical education, early and middle childhood. Marina McMullen, Enterprise Elementary School, certified in English as a new language, early and middle childhood. Deborah Oliver, Lake Grove Elementary School, certified in literacy, reading language arts, early and middle childhood. Julie Richard, Sacagawea Middle School, certified in physical education, early adolescence through young adulthood. Juan Rodriguez, Federal Way High School, certified in science, adolescence, and young adulthood. Jamie Sproul, Todd Beamer High School, certified in science, adolescence, and young adulthood. Sarah Tensler, Thomas Jefferson High School, certified in social studies, history, adolescence, and young adulthood. Dirk Vanderhulst, Federal Way High School, certified in science, adolescence, and young adulthood. And the last of our nationally certified teachers, Jane Wan, Enterprise Elementary School, certified in generalist, early childhood. Congratulations.
Yes, it does. Thank you. Big smile. Stay right there. Thank you.
Okay, we have another kind of a group. So first thing I'm going to do is I would like to call Monica Wachi up. And then if I could ask Sarah Ho, Michael Zarimba, and Tyler Lucas to make their way up front, please. Okay, so come on up front. I'm going to read the story, and then I'm going to add the rest of the groups. So be ready, y'all, as I call you up one by one. So Thomas Jefferson Emergency Response Team students recently swept the top 17 spots to bring home another Skills USA Puget Sound Regional Championship in First Aid and CPR. Sarah Ho, Michael Zarimba, and Tyler Lucas, who I've known since kindergarten, finished first, second, and third respectfully in the competition. All TJ contestants, yeah, let's give them a hand. All TJ contestants finished above the 90th percentile, while the closest competition was in the 70th percentile. The students are fundraising to send the top 4 to 5 finishers to state, where they will be competing for TJ's 6th straight championship title. Teacher and advisor Monica Wachi has been with TJ for 30 years and has been teaching and training TJ's students in emergency response for 17 years. In addition to Sarah, Michael, and Tyler, we want to congratulate the following First Aid and CPR Skills USA regional champs. So as I call your name, can you come up to the front, please, and join the group? Alyssa Cadena, Naylene Moore, Alex Huang, Gildardo Alvarez, Scarlett Robles, Jessica Trong, Raylan Warder, Jose Aguilar, Kyla McSherry, Prutib Basi, Samantha Showmaker, Pamela Nunez, Sabrina Mohammed, and Kelby Paulson. Let's give this group a round of applause.
And before I move on to my good news announcement, I'd like to take advantage of sitting here as retired TJ principal and say just how excited I am to see just how successful you've been. Monica, great job. Students, I'm so proud of you. So proud. Well done. Now, could I have anyone that's with the Twin Lakes Mariner Self-Manager Program, please do come up. I think it could be the principal as well. Dr. Pijanowski? Yeah. Since implementing the Twin Lakes Mariner Self-Manager Program in January, Twin Lakes Elementary has had over 100 student scholars, grades 1 through 5, earn their Mariner Manager badge. To become a Mariner Manager, Twin Lakes student scholars must demonstrate they are respectful, responsible, and ready to learn in multiple ways. Twin Lakes Mariner Manager Program grows each month and culminates with an end-of-the-month celebration. These celebrations are vital for acknowledging those who have earned this special status and for creating an incentive for other students in the process of qualifying for their badge. While the Mariner Manager Celebration is a collaborative event, there is one person in particular who deserves special recognition. That is Marcy Samuelson, Twin Lakes LAP Para and library assistant. Mrs. Samuelson is the primary designer and coordinator of Twin Lakes Mariner Manager Celebrations. Every month, she pulls out the stops to create a very special celebration. Twin Lakes is very lucky to have Mrs. Samuelson's head, heart, and hands on deck. She consistently goes above and beyond to serve Twin Lakes students and staff. Thank you for your support of our student scholars, Marcy. Thank you. We now want to acknowledge Kylo Middle School teachers, Sam Rupol, Katrina Waters, and Tricia Ramos this evening. Sam and Katrina, with support from Tricia, spend 1 to 2 Saturdays a month on their own time, providing a Saturday math school. The teachers reach out to the families of students who need a little extra math assistance and invite the students to attend. While the students do not always enter with a positive attitude, Sam says they usually leave with a smile. They will often even admit they had fun and ask to come back. A few have asked to have a math school every Saturday. The fact that Sam, Katrina, and Tricia also provide breakfast, sometimes pancakes, sometimes bagels, certainly doesn't hurt. We appreciate your commitment to our student scholars, Sam, Katrina, and Tricia.
Okay, next, if we could have Todd Beamer High School Principal Joni Hall and student Lexus Oden. Todd Beamer High School senior Lexus Oden is serving her second year as a member of the statewide Washington Interscholastic Activities Association's LEAP Leadership Committee. LEAP stands for Leadership Through Education, Activities, and Personal Development. As a part of the committee, these student scholars participate in WIAA events, committee meetings, and community projects. Just 12 students from across the state are selected for this 2-year commitment. The application requires a 500-word essay, a video, and letters of recommendation from teachers, coaches, or other school personnel. LEAP committee members have the unique opportunity to be the voice of Washington's nearly 230,000 WIAA student participants. Lexus is also a member of the Todd Beamer High School's South Puget Sound League 4A's Girl Basketball Championship team. And they will play in the state tournament the first week in March. Yeah, have the team come up and join you, certainly. So congratulations, Lexus Oden, on your selection to the Leadership Committee, and thank you for representing Federal Way Public Schools as a WIAA student leader.
I've been like, mother.
Give him just a minute to exit out, and then we'll move on. All right, next item on the agenda is our legislative report. Director Drake.
So it takes quite a bit of concentration working your way through all the bills. We're about 2/3 of the way through this present session, legislative session. And we actually have our first educational bill that's passed both houses. It is the McCleary Task Force Bill, 6195. And this bill is actually going to be charging the legislative session of 2017 with coming up with ways to fund the McCleary Act. So it's sort of pushing things down the road a bit, and not everyone is too excited about this bill being passed, but it does actually put in place the fact that 2017 legislation will be required, as mandated by the Supreme Court, to fund basic education. That's where it stands. So we wait to hear more, and there is talk that perhaps this is sufficient for the out of compliance that the state is being required to pay to the Supreme Court. It's up to 19 million at this point. But we're not sure if it is sufficient. The Supreme Court hasn't weighed in yet. So that's at least a start. The next bill, I'm only going to be identifying bills that really are focused on what we as Federal Way School District has identified as our priorities. The next one is House Bill 2698. It is concerning the levy reform / cliff, something that we have been very worried about, that we would find ourselves in a huge financial difficulty should this not go through. It was voted unanimously out of the House, 91-7. It delays by 1 year, so 2018 to 2019, the scheduled reduction of school district levy lids, as well as the elimination of ghost revenues that artificially inflate levy bases. So it means that we can take a bit of a breath, because we are being given an additional year at the rate at which levies are presently being raised, which is huge for us. The great teachers in every classroom is an area that's of huge concern. As I mentioned 2 weeks ago when we went to Olympia, we spoke very specifically to our legislators about the numbers of our students who do not have teachers because of shortages, because of substitute shortages. There are 3 bills that are passing through houses unanimously that are addressing teacher substitute shortage. And there is also House Bill 1345, which is professional learning, that has passed out of the House and provides statewide definition of professional learning to guide school district professional learning efforts. And that's an important bill for us also. I thought this was interesting, so I thought I'd mention it. Senate Bill 6194, charter schools. It has passed through the Senate. It is re-examining, looking at the provisions to authorize charter schools and address the Washington Supreme Court's decision to not allow charter schools. So it passed through the Senate. It was heard in the House Education Committee on Friday. No action as present has been taken. But the fact that there are 20 days of this session left, everyone's waiting to see just how that is going to look as we move towards the end of this session. So that's it for the moment.
Great, thank you. So next is the space for public comment. There are blue sheets on the back of the table if you're interested in making public comment. At this point, I have one this evening, Gary Robertson.
Good evening, Board President McElroy, board members, and Superintendent Campbell. My name is Gary Robertson, and tonight I want to address the issue of the McCleary decision, which required the legislature to fully fund K through 12 education. And like I say, Liz Drake told you about this last month and again tonight. This issue had dragged on for 3 or 4 years now. Last year, the state Supreme Court held the legislature in contempt of court and fined them $100,000 a day for not fully addressing this issue during the 2015 legislative session. And as Liz mentioned, it stands at about $19 million right now. In addition, last year, a group of legislators led by Senator Bruce Dammeier of Puyallup and Christine Rolfs of Bainbridge Island held 7 listening meetings across the state. I attended the one in Renton along with Dr. Tammy Campbell, Board President Jeffrey McElroy, Vice President Claire Wilson, Board Member Liz Drake, and Assistant Superintendent Sally McLean. President McElroy was one of 7 speakers who led off the testimony. Both Sally and I also testified before the committee, along with about 60 others, for over 3 hours. In addition, I wrote an article that was published in the Mirror, where I reported many of these speakers gave the legislators numerous ideas on how to find additional funding sources. After all this testimony, the final and most important message they delivered was, whatever you do, do it now and make it fair. Unfortunately, they didn't get the message, and needless to say, I'm extremely disappointed at the legislature's continued failure to address this very important decision and ignore the Supreme Court contempt of court ruling. And I'll be more blunt, using the election and getting reelected as a reason for not addressing this decision is the worst excuse I've ever heard. Now we sit and wait for how long, no one knows. I leave you with 2 $64,000 questions. If the legislatures aren't willing to do the job they were elected to do, why did they run for office in the first place? And why did the listening committee go to all the trouble to hold these 7 meetings if they weren't going to take the testimony seriously and act accordingly? Being the proactive individual that I am, I emailed both Senator Dammeier and Rolfs and asked them that very same question. To no one's surprise, I got no answer. Dr. Campbell and I agree that in the end, the losers are the school districts and most importantly, the students, and that is just not fair. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Gary. Yeah, it was. All right, superintendent comments are next. Dr. Campbell?
In light of the events that have happened over the last week, I was thinking about the good news announcements and you getting to see the full tapestry of excellence that happens in Federal Way Public Schools. And so often we see all of the exciting things and it doesn't necessarily make the news. And I want to just say that what we saw here today, that's Federal Way Public Schools. The staff, the students, and all the incredible things that are happening across our district. And I want to offer that up as the core of what we're about. I will also say that we were reminded over the events that have happened over the last week or so that it also is something that happens all around the country, and all school districts across the country are grappling with issues that threaten the safety of our children. Gun violence and drugs are often 2 of the leading contributors of that concern. And I think we're going to use the week's events to learn from, to rally together as a community, to talk about what we can do to continue to know our students better, to connect with our students better, and to have the kinds of outreach so that we can be even more proactive in terms of how we ensure their safety. More importantly, how do we ensure that we have dynamic learning environments in every single one of our schools? So what you saw today, that's who we're about. And when we have these outlier events, it's important to understand where they sit in terms of what's happening in most of our schools most of the time. I also want to say that I will be convening a group, including the mayor, the chief of police, because I believe this is a community issue, and that we come together as a community to think about what we can do in partnership to really up our game in terms of reaching out and ensuring that when our students are not in school, that they have the kind of environments that promote the kind of positive outcomes that we know they need. On another note, I want to thank the voters for supporting our tech levy at a tune to about 61%. It tells us that we have the full support of our community. They recognize how important it is for our student scholars to be tech literate. And we're excited about unveiling our plans over the next few weeks and months that will really ramp up the kind of technology experiences that our teachers and our student scholars have. And I also want to share that today we had Mary Jean Ryan from the Roadmap CCER. She shared some data with our principals. And there was some good news and there were some areas for us to improve upon. And some of the good news related to what we were seeing for some of our students who were leaving our system in terms of having college-ready transcripts. That was one of the highlights. Areas that we need to improve upon as a district, our attendance rate. We're one of the districts that has some of the highest lack of attendance across some of our schools, so that'll give us opportunities to address those issues in our strategic planning process as well as our third grade reading. And these shouldn't be a surprise, but we will see common strategies that all 39 sites will really focus on as we engage in strategic planning over the next as we wrap up that strategic plan over the next few weeks. I was really impressed with our principals. They were all in on listening to the data and thinking about what were the implications for their work. And I just remind folks that this is something that will take us years to sort of see some really dynamic results, but we're going to be focused on turning those things around. That's it.
All right, school board comments. Director Drake, would you like to start us this evening?
Yeah.
So I wanted to start by also reinforcing what Dr. Campbell has just said about our community and the way we view the importance of all our students being safe. I'd like to say just how much I appreciated the speed with which I was informed of what was going on, and the fact that as a community, I really felt every effort was made to be sensitive and aware of the issues and the huge pain that was going on. I did attend a community meeting on Saturday morning, the 2016 City Council retreat, and I have to share with you the way in which the police chief needed to share with me everything that he is wanting to do to work with the school district. It was, as Dr. Campbell is saying, as we move forward, we are learning from what is going on to make us even stronger for the future. 2 weeks ago, we left here wondering what was going to happen with the vote. And we were elated. It was lovely being invited around to Dr. Campbell's home and all the key people that had helped with the campaign sort of stood with bated breath, and we were elated, excited, started doing signs saying thank you, because it is so important that we appreciate and reach out to our community to acknowledge this 10% increase of past levies. That very next day, Claire Wilson, Jeffrey McAnally, Dr. Campbell, Sally McLean, Marin Miller, and myself, we went to a conference, the Superintendents Association conference in Phoenix. And if ever there was a better moment to be celebrating the success of the levy, it was as I selected particularly the technology sessions that were available at the conference, and sessions that talked about preparing students for a world we cannot imagine was the name of one. 21 trends for a fast-changing world that schools and students need to be aware of and prepared for. I cannot tell you how powerful it was seeing superintendents and board members from across the nation discussing and sharing and thinking about what we need to do for each and every one of our students to prepare them for a world that we can't even imagine. We have elementary students who, when they graduate, who knows what the workforce is going to look like. And part of the discussion that I had on this Saturday meeting, the City Council meeting, and the reason I attended was to present to the City Council our platform, legislative platform, and to talk about the fact that if we as a city do not value and do not support our schools, and we as a school district do not support what's going on in the city, we are not going to be the success we need to be for our students. Our students will be looking for jobs that don't even exist. And we need to be preparing our students for the skills of creativity, communication, collaboration. We need to have a city that is strong enough to be drawing the jobs that our students can fill. So the yes vote is huge because we as a school district are moving forward and making sure that we personalize education, that we make it possible for every one of our students to graduate career and college ready. And it all fits in together so beautifully. And that's really my time this last 2 weeks, focusing on our kids.
Vice President Wilson.
Well, I too wanted to say that this last week has been a rough one, not only for our community, but really for our kids in our community. I have 2 high school students, and it's amazing how many kids know how many kids. And even though students are at one school, the impact ripples throughout our community. It really is a call for the need to ramp up our restorative practices, which is what we've been attempting and trying to do, and I know the county has as well, and unfortunately maybe this will be the event that causes us to come together as not only a Federal Way community, but a community of Kent, a community of Des Moines, a community of Auburn, all who serve our Federal Way students, to think about how we can collectively come together, because clearly I don't even know what else I can say. I also was in Phoenix, and I just happened to want to speak on the workshop that was probably the most impactful to me, and that was ending the school to jail track. And it was put on by the Denver Public Schools, as well as a national group on equity out of DC, and a gentleman who started his world as an organizer for Cesar Chavez in California, and his name was Ricardo Martinez, and he really pushed Denver to really make a difference for their kids and to change that system. And it was not a painless process, it was a painful process for when you have your community pushing in to make some changes, and they are expecting to be part of that change. That's a mind shifts change, and it's a change oftentimes in the way we do business. The other thing I think that was so important to me about Ricardo Martinez was he was involved in the creation of DACA, which is our deferred action for students, and as a matter of fact, led the sit-in at in Obama's office in 2012. And so after the conference workshop, I went up to him because I have lots of parents in Federal Way that are very actively involved in making sure people understand about DACA and the access to opportunity it brings to students, and especially for undocumented students. And so was happy to send them a selfie of the two of us and to explain who this gentleman was. And they were really excited and wanted to thank him for what he had done on their behalf. I had the opportunity on February 18th to spend the evening listening to first and second graders as they hone their craft in music performance, and they did an absolutely splendid job. And whether it was taking direction, whether it was memorizing lines, whether it was thinking about all the actions that go with things, it was clearly a delightful experience, and the house was packed. So I appreciate that invitation. And then this last Saturday, I attended the Advancing Leadership Youth Do-It-Yourself Fair that the group puts on a project every year, and they choose to work on a project. And this year it was to support the tool lending library that Federal Way is trying to create. But they did a fabulous job of having vendors there that really shared and showed how to do things. They had booths for kids. They had a handyman contest about making birdhouses. They had fire and rescue there. And two things kind of popped up to me. And one was the presence of Seattle Tilth, and also our very own Federal Way Community Gardens. And when I think about our 100-day plan, and I think about our input from our community, and I think about our input we got on our food and our food service, it occurred to me, I wondered how we might better leverage all of our gardens that we have at every elementary school to begin to think about using that as a way to diversify and add some variety. And I know in the senior garden, it produces tens of thousands of pounds of produce because it's been around for a while. And we also have one on our Truman campus. And so I just wonder about that. And then the Tilth folk have a program that is around not only composting and recycling, but also about growing gardens on your deck and in your apartments. And so when we also have a lot of folks that don't have homes, how do we help support, or how do we share that kind of information with families about growing your own? And so that was a kind of a very interesting thing. And then the other one was something brand new, and I was amazed, but it's called a Repair Cafe Fix-It event. And their goal is to teach the world that you can fix anything if you have the right tools and the right people in the room. And so what they do is they ask you to bring things that don't work. And you bring whatever tools you might want to bring, but you come together and you bring the small household items, and everybody helps everybody else fix them. So this first one is happening March 14th at Federal Way City Hall. And I thought it was kind of interesting, and I thought it's also thinking about our students and how we might get them engaged in that as well. So there was lots of good things, but the gardening was a good connection that I wanted to make sure I said something about. My only last thing that I would say would be the House budget does not include any additional slots for early learning. I'm hoping the Senate budget is different, but as we think about our communities and about meeting the needs of kids and families and providing supports and motivations and programs, we don't have programs for kids that keep them that way. So until we figure out how to do that, we're going to continue to lose kids all along the way. So anything we can do to work together to change the system, I'm all for. Thanks.
Thank you. Director Eto?
Yeah, the events last week were truly tragic, so I really appreciate the comments of Dr. Campbell and the steps that she envisions taking to really engage the community to improve community-wide safety. There's parents that are involved in our schools. We've heard about the Guardians and Parents Partnership, which came out of the Parents on Patrol group. I've also heard from parents on the Sagali Bulldogs who have told me that they've had problems with getting their background checks cleared in a timely manner. And these parents can really help relative to having students be mentored and have the support and guidance that might help them in addressing a lot of the concerns that they're facing. And so maybe the partnership with the police will help in that regard. I'm looking forward to the community engagement sessions next week at both TJ High School and Kylo because it might shape the commentary a little bit relative to school safety and security on campus. And I'm also looking forward to Read Across America. I've been scheduled in for a couple of events there, and so barring jury duty, I think I'll enjoy those events there at Camelot and Olympic View. Thanks.
I just want to state that we have asked a firm to do a security review for our district. We're in the midst of that. And what they've done is looked at our current security practices and systems centrally. They're going to every single school, talking to principals. And out of this sort of audit will be some recommendations, short-term and long-term, to really help us to enhance how we're ensuring our students are safe. And I would look forward to sharing that information at a board meeting in the future so that we can give the public an overview of how we're not only sort of thinking about the day-to-day safety pieces, but being proactive about how do we want to move forward as an organization around this important topic of student safety. So when I heard Director Eto talking about that, that just prompted me to I just wanted to add that piece as well.
So everybody's commented about it, so I'm not going to beat it too much, but I definitely do support Dr. Campbell 100% with the direction she wants to go. I do believe this is a community issue, not just a school district issue. As we have a council member sitting in the audience, it's definitely a partnership that happens between the council and the school district on how we create a community that is safe and take care of our students and our student scholars. Tech levy support, again, thank you. We truly we appreciate the support and all it will do for our students for the next 6 years around technology. I did attend AASA, and you've already heard that, so I'm not going to go over it. The only other thing I'm going to bring up is that Dr. Campbell will do its State of Education next Wednesday, March 2nd at 11:30 at the Chamber. And anybody that wants to come is welcome, but I just want to make sure that you're aware that that is happening. All right, our next item is Sub-Ins 1, Graduation and Advancement. Do you want to cover anything, or are we just going to go through?
Because we did the presentation last time,
got it.
so
Okay.
I figured you just have the conversation
Sure.
this particular time.
So, board members, if you look, I've combined and done our BSR 5 for Sub-In 1 and combined the comments. So if there's any questions.
I don't have a question, but I have a comment. I'm just wondering for clarity, as we move forward, and this doesn't change anything on this document. Number one, I appreciate it, and I think it accurately reflects the questions and the conversation we had. The one thing I do wonder is oftentimes as we are creating a history, the document itself and the end itself may be in two places. And I'm wondering on anywhere or any document like this, when we're responding to something, whether we actually somewhere on the document put the end that we're, because all it does is refer to BSR 5, and that is just board superintendent relationships. That's what BSR means. And sub-end 1 is the one that we are reviewing, which is around the graduation and advancement, that each student will graduate with the prerequisite skills and confidence to access college, career, and other post-secondary options. So if we actually put the sub-end on our monitoring document, wherever that document is, people will know what actually we're responding to. So it would just be a clarity of formatting as opposed to a change in anything. And then I think it would then follow along with the questions that we asked. Again, so the questions in the survey would have the sub-end on it, and our response would always show what sub-end that we're responding to.
Director
but
Wilson,
I
you've
appreciate
mentioned that
your-
before. We have not revised this document, but that's a great point, and
Yeah.
so we'll make sure that we make those changes.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, my comments were along the same line. It's really about the format because it's a little bit confusing when it says date approved September 28, 2010. It's probably when the ends were approved, and so that would probably be last year some point, as opposed to approving this report, which would be below that. So just formatting is kind of an oddball thing.
So no, actually at the top, so it sits within the policy and there's been no change to this document since
Since
September
2010.
September 28, 2010. Everything else indicates down below, so it shows what we're monitoring and when it's submitted. But that's the last time there was any change made to this specific policy. That's just at the top, so that's how that flows. So if we make a change as we're talking about, then we'll update that date based on when we make that latest change.
So the date approved only relates to the document, not the content of the document.
Correct.
So if we, and the response, so it's really a template, if you will. And it's not about what we wrote in it, it's about the questions and the way it's formatted. So if we were to, for example, change it now and put the end on the document, we would then say date approved, we would approve it as a board and say that would now be February. But it's not about the response to the end, it's about the words on the format or on the template.
So to clarify further, we didn't have a sub-end before, so what is it we're saying has never changed? Is it the BSR? Is that what we're referring to then?
BSR 5
yeah.
at this point
BSR
has
5.
not
Correct,
changed, right?
correct,
So the
yeah.
formatting and the document itself. Response changes below, and we've changed our end portion that now has subs in it. But and part of this is as we're going through that eval, right? Ends were first, ELs are where we're at. We'll do the GPs and the BSRs as we flow through all of it, and then we'll have that update.
But this BSR 5 is only around how we're reporting
Correct.
the
subs.
information to the superintendent.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, I would entertain a motion at this time.
I move that the Board of Education approve that sub-ends 1 graduation and advancement is in compliance.
Do a motion, do I hear a second?
I second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and we are adjourned.